point was being made, how can you impose a human rights break, a pause on human rights? That's going to go down incredibly badly.
Well, what was being said is simply not true. We'll come forward with legislation this week, which will be still compliant with the CHR. But the point is that if you look at the dramatic increase of people crossing the channel to come here illegally, the figures are absolutely staggering. Just a few years ago, the figures were around the 300 mark. Now we're looking at 45,000 people last year coming here illegally. That cannot be right. Think about the pressure that is putting on our country. We are talking about people that have travelled here illegally. And the principle of the legislation that we're putting forward is that they should be able to stay if they've come here illegally. I think that's common sense.
But, I mean, just to point out, that's under Conservative administration that those numbers have gone up significantly. I mean, if you're saying that what was being said earlier was wrong on human rights, can you explain how a human rights break would work? Because I think that's the terminology that is alarming to a lot of people who would say, you can't just switch human rights on and off, can you?
No, and I think there's been a lot of speculation before the bill's actually been published. That will be forthcoming in the coming days. It will come to Parliament and people will be able to scrutinise that in detail. But what I can tell you is the basic principle is if you come here illegally, you shouldn't be able to stay. We're all in favour of people trying to gain asylum legally. We're talking about a process which is propped up by criminal gangs that exploit desperate people and also people that have crossed many different countries to get here, many safe countries. It cannot be right that we continue to let that happen. That's why the Prime Minister made it one of his top 5 priorities to stop the boats. It's why he's consistently acted on this since he entered office, and it's why he's bringing forward a legislation to tackle this problem.
Well, why is it then that the previous Home Secretary, Priti Patel, is saying that the legislation is actually already in place for exactly what the Prime Minister is aiming to achieve? It just hasn't been applied properly. And a lot of people would say this is just window dressing. This is about politics, not actually probably going to proceed through the courts because of all the reasons that we've already outlined. This is about playing to the Conservative Party base, which might work for an election, but it's not going to help reduce those numbers.
Well, I'd say that's not true. We've made a pledge to stop those boats and show tangible action. When I go out knocking on doors, not just in my constituency, but in other constituencies too, one of the key issues that comes up is the fact that people want some change on this issue. They are fed up with the rhetoric. That's why this government is acting. That's why it was one of the top 5 priorities from this Prime Minister. That's why legislation is coming forward. And it's why he's taken other actions. It's why we got that record deal with the French government on boats last year. But it's important that we continue to act and take measures that will address the problem.